Hello and welcome to the Saratoga podcast. Happy Wednesday, Adam Israel.
Hey, Robin, how are you?
I'm good. I feel like we've missed a couple Wednesdays because June is like, I don't know if it's like this for you, but it's basically my Super Bowl month. Yeah. For those who don't know, I've got 4 kids. They're little. 3 of them have birthdays in June. It's the end of school. It's kind of a wild month. And so I've missed you guys and I've missed our Wednesday podcast.
Yeah. You know, we've slept a little, but we're back. We got a lot to cover.
We do have a lot to cover. It has been, as per usual in Saratoga Springs, it has been one thing after the next, and there's been a lot going on. In politics, there's been a lot going on because we have a primary this month. June 27th, we have a mayoral primary between Chris Mathiesen and Ron Kim. And we are lucky to have Chris Mathiesen coming up in just a few minutes. We're going to have him on the podcast today. We have a request in to Mayor Ron Kim. We're hoping he joins us next week so we can have him on as well. And they recently had a candidate forum where for the first time we got to see the 2 candidates together. That was hosted by the League of Women Voters. And that was on Monday night. I don't know if you got to catch that at all, Adam.
Yeah, I watched that. And one thing, you know, before we get going today, I want to talk to you about because it's something that you're involved with where Mayor Ron Kim said that, you know, as most people know, that there's a number of previous city council members and employees being investigated by the New York State AG. But Mayor Kim came out and said outright, and he is an attorney, so he knows legalese, he knows what his words means. He said that he believed that you guys violated the law in this debate, and that just kind of struck me as something as this process unfolds that would be interesting for our mayor to say. And I'm just wondering if you have want to respond to that or have any comments on that.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. So on Monday night, the League of Women Voters had this candidate forum. And Chris Mathiesen and Ron Kim were on it. And I think the question you're talking about, because obviously I was watching and I remember this being said because I was pretty upset about it. One of the questions that was asked was about maintaining order during city council meetings. And Mayor Kim's response, he referenced this attorney general investigation. And in doing so, he said that the previous administration was being investigated and just said that as like a blanket statement. And then he said he believed that we had violated the law. And I was like aghast because, first of all, the attorney general is investigating. They issued subpoenas almost a year ago. Everyone's complied with set subpoenas. Ron Kim has no special connection to the attorney general's office. He's not privy to that information. He doesn't have any special insight into how this investigation is going, nor does anyone. I have not been deposed, but I look forward to being deposed at some point in the near future. So none of us have any idea how this investigation is going. So for the mayor of our city to jump to the conclusion that the previous administration has violated the law and to make that as a blanket statement as the mayor of our city is so irresponsible, I just thought it was an egregious thing to say, especially as an attorney, as someone who should understand due process, and that you wait for an investigation to be concluded. I mean, this isn't Jack Smith, right? Who just came out with an indictment and unsealed an indictment, that previews a case, that lists evidence, that a grand jury came up with an indictment. This is not that. This is literally an investigation where information has been requested, and that's all we know. And so for Ron Kim to come to the conclusion that the law has been violated and to say that as our mayor, I just thought that was insane. And I think he owes us an apology, to be honest. And I think it's a dangerous and damning thing to say as the de facto representative of our city.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad. Just wanted to cover that point because it is, it does involve you, and it's one of the benefits our viewers have of having somebody who was a commissioner last term and getting the insights from the front there. But all right. Well, with that being covered, what else?
I want to get your opinion on that really quick, because wouldn't you agree that?
Yeah, well, my opinion is that he is supposed to be representing the city and the citizens. So that potentially, whether he believes that or not, could hinder any lawsuit against the city unless hinder the residents of the city with a financial burden. So I would have hoped he would have just kept his mouth, or not at least made those accusations that a law was broken. Certainly he can reference the investigation. That's no secret. But the fact of, trying the case himself before any facts have been presented, I think was a little callous on his point. But
yeah, we don't even know if there's a case. I mean, anyway.
Yeah.
He also, in that answer, talked about he was, as a kind of a point of pride. And by the way, we would play you these clips, guys, from the League of Women Voters Forum, but they're very strict about not sharing clips from this event. You can only share a link to like the entire hour-long forum itself. Otherwise, we'd be playing you these clips. But he also made reference to the fact that he's presided over 80 meetings. I don't really know what meetings he's counting because there's only 2 city council meetings a month. So there certainly have been nowhere near 80 city council meetings, but he kind of made it a point of pride that only 2 of those meetings have been adjourned because of protesters or disruptions. And I just kind of thought that was a little bit, I was kind of amused by that because I'm not sure that should necessarily be a point of pride when you're talking about your ability to lead a meeting. I don't know if you caught that at all, Adam.
I did. And in hopes of getting Mayor Kim on, I'll reserve judge. I'll be a neutral party in all of this, but certainly he did reference the meetings we had, and meetings being shut down is an issue for this city, and disruptions in our city hall is something that's really taking a lot of resources from the city, time, money, and so forth. So anyway, it was. Say,
in terms of having Mayor Kim on for an interview, I'm guessing that likely I will not be involved in that interview. I think that will probably be best in terms of having the most productive interview possible, because as I've said in the past, I think Mayor Kim has a very challenging relationship with the truth. And so I think probably it would be better for me to not be one of the people interviewing him. So I'll just throw that out there if that sweetens the pot on his end at all. But we're also missing Dan, which I should address for our viewers. Dan is in Vermont having some R&R. Dan, we miss you, buddy. If you're watching, which you're probably not because you're in Vermont, they have horrible Wi-Fi. But more importantly, hopefully you're enjoying yourself and your family. But we miss you, buddy. And Dan will be back next week with us. And so, because normally he's our neutral guy. Normally I can get Adam to have some little controversy with me.
Yeah, although Dan's been taking some stances lately that I want to talk to him about. But I guess we'll save it for the next show when he's here and can talk about it, because he's getting a little fiery in his Saratoga report columns there. So
I know he was getting a little fiery. He had kind of a little bit of a rant there. I you know what? I dug it though. He's usually so buttoned up, and when the man's got an opinion, he's got an opinion.
That's right.
Yeah. So any other stuff from that forum that you wanted to talk about, the League of Women Voters Forum that came up that you found of interest?
No, it's the same. I always have a problem with debates in this city because they're just kind of blob, feel good. I know being involved in a debate 2 years ago, I know a lot of what's said. None of it's really followed up upon. It's people can kind of say what they want in these issues. I don't know how much they swing the pendulum. And I'd be really interested, actually, if anybody's watching this, if they do make decisions based on these debates seem to be really focused on people like you and I, Rob, and people who really like watching and paying attention to local politics. But for the general population, I just don't know how often and how much information they glean from these debates. But if anybody does, I'd be really interested to hear from you about what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, if you have watched a League of Women Voters Forum and it's really changed your opinion on who you're supporting in a primary election or a general election, let us know, because I tend to agree with Adam, especially the way the league formats them. It's really not a debate. They call it a candidate forum. It kind of runs more like a get to know you forum rather than a debate where the candidates can kind of spar back and forth with each other. And so I find that it kind of just reconfirms who people are supporting for rather than moving the needle. Last year, 2 years ago, Saratoga Today had more of a debate style debate. There were things about it that I thought were a little odd, but it lent itself to a bit more of going back and forth with the candidates and kind of being able to criticize your opponent a bit more. Whereas the League of Women Voters literally states in their in the beginning that you are not to attack the candidate, your opponent at all, which is like, it's freaking politics. Like, attacks are inherent to politics. You should be able to criticize your opponent in politics. That's what politics is. You can't just talk about like sunshine and rainbows in yourself. You have to call out the weaknesses of your opponent, in my opinion. So not being able to do that is kind of, makes it inherently a little snoozy. But anyway.
All right. Should we get to our guest?
Yes. So one man that doesn't make politics snoozy is our upcoming guest. Here he is. Hello.
Hello. How are you all?
I'm good. Commissioner Mathiesen, thank you. Welcome to the program.
I'm really happy to be here. It's funny, the other night when we were doing the League of Women Voters debate, I was here at my computer and we were all getting all set to go. And I couldn't hear a thing. And I had to take my iPad and rush upstairs and set up very quickly on my porch with very bad lighting and the odd angle that you have on the iPad. I couldn't figure out what the problem was. And today I realized that what had happened was I didn't push the power button on my speakers. So that it was a pretty simple solution. I at least I know now what I did wrong.
Yeah.
But
we'd like to point out too that IT falls in the finance department. So, so as mayor, you can get some help.
Yes. No one ever has any concerns about me competing with them in terms of IT issues. So it's not my area of expertise.
I will say it's kind of a shame that they don't do these things live anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I do think it's just. You just get a better forum in general when people are in person, I
couldn't agree more. And you get an audience reaction.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's much more spontaneous, I think. It's obviously this is a substitute for that. And it's better than have some opportunity to present your points of view. And I appreciate the League of Women Voters for what they do. But it would have been nice to have it live. Yes, I agree.
Well, since we're talking about it, any reaction, highs or lows for you on Monday night and how the forum went? What was your takeaway?
I thought both of us did okay. I don't think anybody made any big mistakes, which is really good. There were so many things that we never got to.
Yeah.
And I agree with some of the comments that you were making about the fact that, there isn't the opportunity to really follow up the way you would like to.
Yeah.
But it was good. It's nice to have that opportunity, and I certainly appreciate their work.
Chris, let me ask you. Chris Mathiesen I knew was Chris Mathiesen Jr., your son.
Yeah.
I grew up with him. We went to school together.
Yes.
Great guy, great football player.
Yeah.
So you've been in the city a long time.
I've been in the city since I was 3.5. Chris was actually born here. My other two kids, my older kids, were born when I was in dental school. They were born in Teaneck, New Jersey, but Chris was actually born here.
At Saratoga Hospital?
Chris was born in Saratoga Hospital. At the time Chris was born, they were doing construction on Saratoga Hospital, and they had this enormous machine that was tearing down parts of the hospital, making enormous noise. So he came into the world that was very, very loud and not very pleasant. Poor kid, but yeah. But he's an attorney. He works in New York City, but he lives in Saratoga Springs. So his wife and his two kids live around the corner from me off of Tate Lane.
No.
And Chris is gone usually 2 or 3 days a week. He takes the train to New York. And Corey is here with the two kids during the week. And she works for JP Morgan Chase. So we really enjoy being backup parents to them, to little Magnus and Junie. And then we have 4 other grandchildren, but they're not local. They are in other cities.
Being here as long as you have, you've seen obviously this city go through incredible growth.
Oh my gosh!
And in a lot of good ways. There's some controversial ways. How do you see as mayor? How do you what's your what would be your plan for the future of the city, to continue with this growth, to mitigate the growth?
Okay, so. Yeah, I was here since I moved here in 1954. The city has changed a lot. So I've seen Saratoga Springs in the 50s and 60s and the 70s and the 80s, etc. And I practiced dentistry downtown for 30 years before I moved over to West Avenue in 2008. So spent a lot of time downtown. I've spent a lot of time, with a pretty good pulse on the city. I have a great respect for the people who were behind the comprehensive plan. Paid a lot of attention to the comprehensive plan as was being developed in the late 90s. And the comprehensive plan of 1999 and 2001 were really very impressive documents. I was on the Zoning Board of Appeals for 7 years. And because of that, I attended a lot of planning and zoning conferences and interacted with people from across the state. And they look upon Saratoga Springs as a really good example of what planning and zoning should be. Our comprehensive plan focuses our development to an urban area, an urban downtown that helps to create a successful downtown, which is very important. At the same time, it prevents commercial and residential sprawl in our greenbelt, and it maintains the charm of the city. I think it's extremely important that we continue with that. I know people look at some of the building downtown and say this is awful. I don't think it's awful. I think it's a way of maintaining the success that we've had over the past 20 years. I think that this is the way to make the city grow without all the negative effects of that growth. You're not tearing up your green space. You're not creating more streets to plow. You're not creating more infrastructure to be having to take care of. And you really create a walkable city. People aren't as dependent on cars. It's not the sprawl that you see in Wilton and Clifton Park and places like that. And Saratoga Springs, not only is it well respected for its planning and zoning, but certainly is one of the most successful cities in the state of New York, even in the entire Northeast. So people want to be here. We're doing something right. We need to continue to respect that. My concern was in 2004, from 2013 until the last comprehensive plan was approved in 2015. There were people who were on that committee who were trying to cash in on a comprehensive plan, cash in on our city, basically try to undermine the comprehensive plan. That scares me. We need to make sure that the people who are on these committees in the future understand the importance of maintaining the values of that comprehensive plan that have been so successful in protecting our greenbelt and maintaining the success of our downtown.
So in sum, I have always known you as a staunch defender of the greenbelt, and that's something we can count on moving forward.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And again, I think it's extremely important that the people of our city have a better understanding of why the city works so well and what these attributes are to this plan and why it's so important, why our city is so different from other cities. There's an awful lot there that has to do with why we've been so successful.
Well, I will say, as someone who moved here, and what you guys who have lived here for so long would say was fairly recently, which was back in 2008, 2009. It's really hard to understand, our land use boards, how they work, how our zoning laws work. I mean, it's very confusing for someone who's moved here recently. And I think it would be an interesting kind of project for our city government and specifically the mayor's department, because planning and building is under the mayor's department.
That's a lot of people.
Put together something that kind of explains it a bit better to people who are moving here and want to build or just want to have a better general understanding of why things are the way they are.
Oh, I agree. I didn't know as much about zoning and planning as I do now, primarily because when I went on to the zoning board, I had paid a lot of attention to the comprehensive plan of '99. But when I was brought onto the zoning board in 2000, I was the first Democrat in years. I had no idea what the ZBA was all about. I had some idea, but and I didn't really understand the intricacies of planning and zoning. And it was a great experience to attend these programs that were being offered by the Planning Federation, by the New York State Department of State. A lot of these programs were very, very helpful in terms of understanding the importance of good planning and zoning. Also, the importance of good government. I mean, just the idea of the open meetings laws and things of that sort that they touched upon. That was extremely helpful when I was serving on the city council. I really think that having that kind of a background is important. Ron Kim was also on the ZBA. We both served as chairs. I was chair in 2005 and 2006. He was chair in 2004. Obviously, we have a lot in common. We did that. We both served as Commissioner of Public Safety. That's it, Robin.
It's very interesting, though, because you do have a lot of commonalities in your background. You couldn't be more different candidates from what I see and from what I know.
Well, I don't know. But I was always a friend of mine, and we always got along, and we always supported each other. Ron was one of my biggest supporters when I was running. He donated substantially to my first campaign. He donated to my second campaign, and very substantially to my third campaign. So, I mean, he was a supporter of me when he was running for. He wanted to run for Congress up in the 21st district. I donated to that. I supported him when he was running for mayor this time. My reason for running now has to do with the fact that as I was paying attention to what was going on in the city, now that I have more time on my hands since my dental practice, I'm no longer involved in that. I've sold my practice. And I was very disappointed with a lot of what I was seeing. In fact, I was reminded last night, one of the things I had forgotten, how surprised I was when Ron Kim first came into office and didn't have a city attorney in place or an assistant city attorney. And I remember talking to Tony Izzo late in December, the December before Ron Kim took office, and saying to Tony, so what's going on? And Tony said, we don't know. We still don't know. And he was, quite concerned because he had been reappointed by Republicans and Democrats for years and years. He had served, I think, for like 35 or 36 years as assistant city attorney. He didn't know. And at the very last minute, we found out that Ron was not going to reappoint Vince DeLeonardis, who was a really great city attorney, and he wasn't going to appoint Tony Izzo as assistant city attorney, who has really tons of knowledge about institutional knowledge of the city. So that was a shame. And so it was, I guess, a month and a half later that he decided to, from what I could gather, beg Tony to come back as the city attorney.
There was a while there where he was asserting that he and his deputy, who's also an attorney, were going to operate and we're going to do some of the functions of the city attorney position.
And that's hard to understand because we've had other mayors who have been attorneys, and none of them decided that they could also serve as a city attorney. I think that was not a very wise decision on Ron Kim's part, which really surprised me.
I believe he got reprimanded by our city court judges for attempting to do that.
Yes, he did. It was not a good decision. And, the city attorney needs to be someone who's going to be available to serve all 5 departments.
Right.
In the public safety department, we dealt with the city attorney quite a bit, and it was very important to have an assistant city attorney and a city attorney who were not necessarily directly responsible to the mayor. The city attorney has always operated pretty independently. I had great respect for Vince DeLeonardis and Tony Izzo.
Suffice to say, if you're elected, you will maintain the 2 city attorney positions.
Absolutely, and you really need a good city attorney who's going to be independent, certainly not someone who is going to be responsible primarily to the mayor.
Right. Question for you. As I can imagine, it's going to be challenging as a 3-term public safety commissioner to now be in the position of being the mayor. How it seems to me that Mayor Kim has been pretty vocal and pretty outspoken about how the public safety department has been run. How do you think you will manage being the mayor and not kind of stepping into that lane? Or do you anticipate kind of being more involved in public safety, even though you'll be in the mayoral position?
Well, public safety is one of the busiest departments in the city. Public safety and public works are certainly the busiest. And public safety is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week department. Yeah, it really is. And so there's an awful lot of responsibilities going on there. As a former public safety commissioner, I really think that the knowledge that you have of the intricacies of how that department operates are important to have when you're mayor, and it's important to respect how that department works. And I was so surprised when Mayor Kim did not come to the defense of that department, did not come to the defense of the police, when Commissioner Montenegro made some, I think, very questionable decisions regarding the department early in his term. I think when someone comes onto the city council and has the responsibility of overseeing these departments, it's a learning experience. You don't make any major decisions about anything until you've been there for a while and absorb what your role should be, and understand the people that you're working with, and understand the fact that they have all these years of experience. They're professionals, but the law enforcement and the fire EMS department, they're the professionals. You rely on their expertise. You don't come in and decide that you're going to immediately eliminate the position of assistant police chief.
Yeah.
As a whim. That made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Ron Kim didn't object to that at all. Those are the kinds of things that I think, having had an experience as public safety commissioner, I think is helpful as right. mayor, because you understand when someone's making those kinds of decisions that you need to speak up and disagree.
I've always felt that at the end of the day, the city council is accountable to the voters, right? During elections season. But on, a day-to-day basis, and certainly at the city council table, the people that can really hold the city council accountable are the other city council members themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's really important. And I don't see that happening with this city council in a way that's productive or effective. I see a lot of really nasty infighting. But I don't see them holding each other accountable in a way that's professional or in a way that the residents would like to see.
No, again, I agree. I've been very disappointed to see, first of all, so little coordination among members of the council. Some of the activities that take place at the city council table in live meetings, you say to yourself, wouldn't they have worked these things out on their own prior to the meetings? Some of the stuff that are they're calling into question regarding each other's motivations regarding their activities. I'm saying we were very good at trying to work these things out behind the scenes and during the pre-agenda meetings to make sure everybody's on board. The amount of time that's spent during council meetings over the past year and a half have been so wasteful because there's so little coordination. It makes no sense to me at all, and that I think facilitating that is something that the mayor should have been doing all along.
And you don't mean, and I think what you mean is a lot of times we see that people don't have the correct information. They haven't seen the agenda item. They're missing pieces here and there. So it's not that you're kind of hashing things out in a way that's not transparent before the meeting begins.
No, I'm not talking about transparency. I'm talking about making sure that people on the council understand the reasons behind certain resolutions or certain actions, so that there are no questions at the time that they get to the council meeting. If they have objections, if they have concerns, et cetera, they should be expressed publicly. Right. But some of the stuff that I've heard basically is just simply because other members of the council didn't understand what was being put forth. That's not helpful. And it just makes those meetings last way too long. These meetings are much going on way too late. I'm a really big advocate of the open meetings law, the themes behind the open meetings law. Who's going to sit around and wait until 11:30 or 12 o'clock to listen to these meetings? It's just wasteful and unnecessary and uncalled for.
Do you think the extended 4-minute, going from 2 minutes to 4 minutes?
I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
No, I don't think the 4-minute thing is a really good idea. I just think that allows people to ramble on and on. I think that people who have more extensive concerns that you can't express within 2 minutes ought to be given the opportunity to submit their concerns in writing, and certainly have those letters published on the city website so people can see what they're all about, so that people have something to refer to. But I don't think that the 4-minute solution was a very good idea. And again, I think that this was just one of many attempts that the mayor had of trying to deal with the dissension that's been happening at the city council meetings. I don't think it was a good idea.
Chris,
4 minutes is a long time, and by the time you finish with public comment, again, you're pushing the guts of the meeting back even farther. It's just too long.
Chris, you ran public safety as a Democrat.
Yes.
For this election, the Democratic committee in Saratoga endorsed the incumbent, Mayor
Yeah.
Kim.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've been supported by One Saratoga. You'll be on
Yeah.
that line, which is a independent, nonpartisan group of citizens who formed, I believe, when Robin, when you won. I know that as a Rhino Republican, I know there was some interest in you running on the Republican line from the Republicans. I'm wondering why you chose the path to as a primary instead of seeking another nomination from the Republican Party or just running as an independent.
Yeah, so I have really great respect for Republicans in the city. I really do. I grew up in Saratoga Springs. It was a city that was dominated by Republicans. Nearly everybody I knew was a Republican. But I've never been a Republican. I've always been a Democrat. I was involved in the Democratic committee for years. Unlike Ron Kim, I've always been a Democrat.
Yeah, Ron Kim has I didn't mean to interrupt. Ron Kim actually was a Republican, which I don't know a lot of people know.
That's why he was on the ZBA before I was, because he was appointed by a Republican. He was a Republican. I was the first Democrat in years on the ZBA. I was appointed by Ken Klotz. I really think that it would, despite the fact that I enjoyed meeting with the chair of the Republican Party, a very nice man, and we had a nice conversation. I just thought that under the circumstances, it wouldn't be fair to them for them to endorse me because I really am a Democrat, and I just didn't feel that I could comfortably run on the Republican line. So I thought, it would have been a shortcut.
I just have to say, I have a lot of respect for that decision, because when I vote for someone on a Republican line or a Democratic line, I assume that they represent that party's ideology.
Yeah.
And so if I saw Chris Mathiesen on the Republican line, I would vote for you, assuming that you embodied that core ideology. Mm-hmm. And if you were doing that just as a runaround to win, and you didn't represent that ideology, I would lose a lot of respect for you. And
well, here I am. I was committee chair for the Democratic local Democratic Party in District 21 for all these years. And what would all those people think if I was running as a Republican after all that time? I just don't think that was the right thing to do. So, I really do believe, as I said, I've said in the past, that I don't think most of the problems confronting the city are Democrat or Republican problems. I think they are problems that we can all work together on and reach some solutions. I really do think that national politics really has little to do, or national political labels has little to do with what's going on in Saratoga Springs. I think Republicans or Democrats can come up with solutions, and I think there can be excellent candidates from both parties. In the old days, when they had nonpartisan elections, I've heard many people say that that was a better time.
Yeah.
People were more apt to run for office. It was easier to get people to run for various positions. That was not necessarily a bad thing.
So the One Saratoga ballot line is their motto is city over party.
Yes.
And so I think what you're saying really embodies what the One Saratoga line is about.
Exactly. I think the idea behind One Saratoga is really exciting. Because it may help to bring more people into the political field in Saratoga Springs. We really need more people to run for office. Look what's happening now. We have 5 people on this city council and 2 supervisors. We've got 3 people running for the 2 supervisor positions. We've got 2 people running for positions on the city council.
Although I have to say,
that's not very healthy.
But last election cycle, I will say we had a record number of candidates running.
Yes.
So it is kind of like a strange thing. I have 2 questions for you, though. One, can you tell us quickly who else is on the One Saratoga line with you?
Yeah, Tim Cole is running for my old position and your old position, Commissioner of Public Safety. Nice man, a really nice man. I spent a lot of time talking to him too, and he has the endorsement of the Republican Party. He has a long-standing background in law enforcement, and I think he would bring a lot restore a lot of the stability in the police department, and I think that's desperately needed. Michelle Madigan is running for one of the 2 supervisor positions. Michelle was Commissioner of Finance for 10 years, and she was really excellent in that position. And Matt Veach is the long-standing Republican candidate on the Board of Supervisors. He has a distinguished career on the Board of Supervisors, and I think he brings a lot to the table in terms of the relationship between the city of Saratoga Springs and the Board of Supervisors. That's very important. I think Matt has served an important role. I served with Matt on the ZBA too, and of course his brother was police chief when I was commissioner, and I know his family, and I have great admiration for the Beach family. So I think he's an excellent candidate too.
Well, I have two questions for you, and one I don't mean to kind of open a can of worms with, but I'm curious what your answer is.
That's all right.
Charter change has been an issue that's come up, time and time again in the city, and especially with how few candidates are running this time around. How do you feel about our city charter, and is charter change something you still feel is necessary in Saratoga?
This is Dr. Pepper, by the way. It's not beer or anything. Charter change. So I have never not supported charter change. Every iteration, every attempt at charter change, I've supported, because I do believe that the commission form of government it is, for very, very many reasons, is not a really good approach to local government in the city of such as ours, especially now that it's a bigger city, more complex city. May have worked well in 1915. There are some real challenges there. Now, on the other hand, I think we need to give it a rest for a number of years. We've done this over and over again, and we're getting nowhere. And I think people are so well entrenched in their various camps on this topic. I would suggest just making the current form of government, the commission form of government, work as well as it can. It can work. It can work. Especially if you have people on the council who understand it, understand what their limitations are, and understand the incredible power that they have. But respect that power. I think it can be made to work. It has worked. I mean, we've done enormous things. Important things here in Saratoga Springs. Long term, yes, I do think that someday we will be changing the charter. And I think I will probably live to see that. And I expect to be living for a long time. But I don't think there's any big rush to do that at this point in time. I think it's disruptive. It is really disruptive. Yeah. And right now, I think we need normalcy. I think we really need to step towards normalcy. And maybe in 5 or 6 years, maybe start thinking about that. But not right away. Absolutely not.
Thank you for that answer.
Sure.
Other kind of slightly more superficial question, but any kind of most surprising moment in campaigning so far, or kind of best or worst moment, maybe?
Well, the worst moment happened the other day, because I'm doing my own literature, a lot of my own literature drops. I have a lot of the people doing them too, but we have door hangers we're putting up. I have some here, and I was at a house, and so I'm putting these door hangers up on the doors of Democrats in the city to encourage them to vote in the primary. And I was on Nelson Avenue, and I put a door hanger up, and I went to the next door, and I heard this rumbling, and I heard something. I didn't know what it was, and I heard this man yell out, "What's this garbage?" And I turned around, and he was looking at me, and I said, "Well, I just put a door hanger on your door to remind you about the primary on June 27th. And he said, "You're littering the neighborhood, and I expect this from," I don't think he knew who I was. "I expect this from Kim. I don't expect this from Mathiesen. Get this off my porch." So he insisted that I come over to his porch, pick up the door hanger that he had thrown on the floor, and pick it up and walk away. So everybody's been almost everybody has been so nice. And during the petitions for the Democratic line, the primary, during the One Saratoga petitions, putting the door hangers, I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people, and almost everybody has been very receptive and understanding. But then there is also, the kind of thing where you just never know what you're going to confront when you go to someone's door. I have to say, the One Saratoga people, the people who had signed those petitions, were very, very positive about having the One Saratoga line. They really were. I ran into very little resistance there. That was easy. It was the easiest petitioning I've ever done, because, again, I was on the Democratic committee for years. I've been doing this door-to-door stuff for years for petitions. That was so easy. People were
I think
very receptive to that. They really
Adam
were.
and I had the same when Adam and I petitioned for our independent ballot line. I think we had a similar experience. People were just, they love the option of having another option.
Absolutely. They're very open.
They really do. And I will say, Adam, I don't know if you would agree with me, but even people who didn't want to sign would be generally really polite about it. So to have someone kind of like snarl is kind of fairly unusual.
Most people are nice. Most people are very nice, and it's a nice community. But once in a while, I mean, and you don't know, and you know, this is not the kind of activity for the faint of heart, because you really don't know when you're doing this. And really,
I wish real quick, I wish more people as a candidate, I wish more people realize what you're sacrificing your time, with your family, your time away from your profession, your job, if you have one, to essentially volunteer for this city, right?
Oh, I know.
So even if you don't support somebody, I would strongly urge citizens in this city to at least be respectful for the people who are putting themselves out there, because it's not easy. It's not easy, wondering, are you going to wake up to some hit piece done in some local paper, or it really is. You're doing this because it's not for the money. It's not for the power. Most people, it's mainly for the ability to make a change.
No, the 14.5. I have to say, and I brought this up before, and I brought it up the other night too. I do think it's time that the city look at the 14.5. The 14.5 had been increased from 14 in the early 2000s, and it never went up since then. And I really do think that needs to be adjusted to take into account the costs of living increases over all those years, which will bring it around $24,000 or $25,000, and then there should be a cost of living adjustment from that point on, because that shouldn't happen. Not for my next term, but for the term after. That should be something for the city council to consider, and they should be very upfront about that with the citizens. Everybody else in city government has been compensated fairly, and members of the council have not, and that's not okay.
So first of all, raising the deputy salaries without addressing the commissioner salaries was just asinine. It was just totally asinine.
Especially the figures that we're talking about when they were first talking about it.
I know, it was ridiculous.
Crazy. Yeah.
But my suggestion to this city council, if anyone's listening, I've told this to many of them, this is actually the moment where an independent committee is actually warranted. I think they've formed so many committees, it's just ridiculous. But this is an instance where you put together a committee of people who come up with a recommendation, and you make it applicable to the next council that's elected.
Exactly, to the next council,
To the next council.
This is not the first time I brought this up. I brought this up when I was leaving the council.
Yeah.
I suggested to council members that, again, obviously that wouldn't be affecting me because I was leaving the council at the time. It was 2017, but I said to them, this is not fair. You are not being compensated fairly, and this should be adjusted. Yeah.
I think when I did the math, I was making like $4 an hour or something.
Yeah, I know. I did that too.
And then the only reason I was able to even run for the office was that I went on the city's health insurance. And
I know. Well, that's the other thing. Supposedly everybody in the city council is being paid the same, but that's not really true, because I think a lot of other citizens don't understand that the members of the council do get a really interesting perk. They get free health insurance. And so when I started on the council, I had no idea that I was getting free health insurance. I walked into the office my very first day, and Danielle Willard said to me, so, we're going to cover your health insurance. I said, oh, well, how much will that be? And she said, nothing. And I said, you're kidding.
Yeah, that's
so for me, that was saving. Fran and I were paying close to $12,000 a year for our dual health insurance, for a couple of health insurance, and for families it was probably closer to $20,000 a year.
It was huge.
But for Skip Scirocco, because his contract, he had worked for the city so long, and his contract included that the city would pay for his health insurance ever. It was basically nothing. He was never getting no benefit at all. So when I was on the council, like John Frank was getting, for his entire family, was getting probably close to $20,000 extra in terms of coverage. I was getting about 12, and Skip was getting nothing. Not fair. We should all be getting the same thing. I think the health insurance thing, I think council members should have the opportunity to buy into it if they want, but they shouldn't be included. That should not be included. And that 10-year deal, where people who have been on the council for 10 years get free health insurance forever. That's crazy, and that should go also. No.
I agree. I think that has to be eliminated. And I will say, when I suggested to my husband that I was going to run for office and I told him, what I would make, he was like, no. But then when I said the health insurance, he was like,
I didn't know it at all.
We have 4 kids and he owns a business. So that was almost $30,000 for us a year.
That's where I was too.
Yeah. So it was huge. But anyhow, Adam, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be asking so many questions.
No. It was great. I know, you got the election coming in 13 days. So I'm sure you have a lot to do. I guess, taking a lot of your time, but in closing, is there kind of your elevator pitch, your what you'd like the citizens to know, or the Democratic citizens?
I'd like to mention one thing. I had the opportunity to see a piece that was on Channel 6 yesterday. I saw it today, where Ron Kim was insisting that somehow when I was in office, that I caused a delay for 8 years of establishing the third fire EMS station, which is you have to watch it. Very unfair estimation of what happened. Ron Kim deserves credit for the initial study which established the need for the third fire EMS station. When we were in office, we were trying to find a piece of land. He couldn't, and we were having trouble finding a piece of land. We found one piece of land, and the only reason we got involved in that transaction was because it was the only one that was available. It was an excellent piece. It was the only one available, but it did involve a related transaction. The person who controlled that property wanted us to sell him the Collimer lot, since it was the Aaronsons. They owned the property next door. So we talked to the city attorney, and they said, well, yes, do it. Well, we did it because it was the only option we had. Imagine if we hadn't done that. The city attorney approved it. All the numbers worked really well. It was a really good deal for the city. Imagine if we hadn't done that, if we hadn't made that effort. The only reason it failed was because the Charities Bureau of the Attorney General's office determined that the property on Union Avenue, which we thought was actually owned by the Aaronsons, wasn't exactly owned by the Aaronsons. It was owned by a religious organization that was associated with the Aaronsons. And so they determined that that organization was not getting the benefit that it should have, and so the deal never went through. Otherwise, it would have gone through. It would have been a win-win situation for the city. I feel badly we didn't get it, but I give great credit to Meg Kelly, who deserves tons of credit for getting the Naira property. It's not exactly the ideal location for the third fire EMS station, but it's a great location. It's going to work really, really well for the city. It's nice that it's being completed, but it's a shame that here these kinds of attacks being lodged by my opponent, and I'm just really tired of those kinds of things.
It's just garbage, and it's the worst kind of politics you can play, and to mischaracterize the past that way. And I just have to say, not to toot our own horn, but Meg Kelly got that land and then turned it over to the public safety department, and literally turned it over a month before the pandemic hit. The city went into a financial free fall. Yeah, I know. And still we were able to push through. And with the finance department and the public safety department, we were able to get that property shovel ready and tee it up and get it done in a time where, I didn't think there was any chance in hell we were going to be able to do an $8 million project when the city was going to be financially devastated. Mm-hmm. And so it was a credit to Eileen Finneran. It was a credit to Chief Dolan.
Yes, it was. Absolutely. When we came into office, there were many, many people who were insisting that we didn't need the fire EMS station. We got the city to, I think the entire community to understand the importance of that. Yeah. We got the entire city council to approve a third fire EMS station. We came a long way from where we were when we first got into office. So it's important to, give credit where credit is due. I give credit to Ron Kim when he deserves it.
That's because you're a mature individual.
He seems not to want to do the same.
And then irony of ironies, the Aaronsons still were able to buy the Collimer lot.
Yes, they were. And the odd part is that they bought it for a price which was very consistent with the original appraisal that we had done in 2013. Our appraisal was $750, and they bought it for like 1.2, which is very consistent because of the increase in property values in the area. We were sued by Tommy McTighe, who insisted that we were getting much too little for the Calmer lot, yet he didn't sue during the second round of negotiations. So I don't. Who knows?
Almost like it was politically motivated.
Who would think that? You know.
All right. Well,
thank you so much for joining us, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you both for listening to me and giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Now, early voting starts on June 17th.
Yes, I know.
So if you're a Democrat, you can go out and vote in the primary.
Yes.
The day of the actual primary is June 27th.
Yes.
Chris Mathiesen will be on the ballot along with Ron Kim. So we encourage all Democrats to get out and vote. Tell your friends, go vote, vote, vote. And then even better, make an informed vote.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you so
both
much.
Of you.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Commissioner. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're back.
Yeah. Interesting.
I know. There's always so much. I feel bad, Adam, because there's always so much when I have another commissioner on or a former commissioner on, especially when they're a former public safety commissioner. Like, I could talk forever. There's so many questions I could ask. So I hope I didn't.
No, it was good. It was a good talk. But speaking of public safety, there's been some other things going on in city business. There was a city council meeting not last Tuesday, not yesterday, but a week ago, which was interesting, mainly just because of the public comment. Public comment still continues to be kind of dominated by the BLM group. It was Mayor Kim struggling to keep control of the meeting, people talking past their time, people talking over them. Did you get a chance to watch public comment?
I watched a bit of it. So something was going on. I don't know why I couldn't watch the full meeting, but I caught a bit of it. And it's like a broken record, man. It is just like a broken record. It's the same thing every time. And listening to Ron Kim try to control that public comment is like, it's so cringy and sad. Because he almost just sounds like so defeated and like feeble and trying to get control back. Like he's just pleading with people, and it's totally ineffective. It's just a bummer.
Yeah, it seems like 4 out of the 5 city council members have or at least Mayor Kim, Commissioner Moran, Commissioner Shangvi have seemed to embrace people talking when they feel like talking and for how long they've talking. And this is kind of the center of everything that's going on, is the lack of control or decorum in our meetings. I find it interesting. You're starting to see more and more liberal and left people get up and kind of speak out against the local BLM chapter hijacking these meetings, saying this is not a means to an end, and this is what we've been talking about. You had a man from Albany come down and say, listen, we have to work together to start to solve these issues. You had a man who was, it seemed very liberal, very left, supports national BLMs, kind of speaking out against this lack of ability for people to go up and speak at public comment unless they are kind of tote this far left BLM narrative. And it is difficult to watch in our city.
It is difficult to watch. And I also think that, like, as a leader, you have to lead by example. And our city council is not doing that. They're not displaying decorum and professionalism in how they're acting. And so they set the tone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, let's talk about the slamming, the L's being slammed incident. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. So this is kind of an interesting thing. So essentially what we've been observing over the last couple of weeks is that the police department, I guess at the direction of Commissioner Montagnino, has been using social media and body camera footage to refute things that have been said at city council meetings about police activity or police actions. And so the latest round, I guess, and I missed this happening at the council, but I've read about it and heard about it and seen it on social now. I guess that Commissioner Moran said that Els Figueroa, who is the head of Saratoga BLM, when he was arrested, he was like slammed up against a wall, and it was a very violent arrest, was how it was characterized. Is that correct?
Well, it was. So the first thing was whether he was being arrested or not.
Right. Whether it was.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just,
or...
yeah, exactly. That I mean, he was being detained, and whether he should have been put in handcuffs.
Right.
That's one thing where listen, if you're charged with a misdemeanor and you walk into a police station, the police did put him in cuffs. They didn't do a thorough search, but they patted him down.
You have
They
to
put him
be
in cuffs.
booked, right?
What's that?
So I don't know. This is when we kind of need a Dan. So if you're charged with a misdemeanor, you still have to be like booked, correct? Like
right. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
And so that was the first case of Els being and personally, I'm under the belief that yes, the police. There's this incident in England where a police officer was shot because a man was he was handcuffed lightly and he was able to get to his gun and in the holding room he was shot. So listen, it is the unfortunate part of being charged with a crime is that you are detained and put in handcuffs. Commissioner Moran made the accusation that he was slammed. He's then gone and apologized for that, but it was just interesting seeing all this, and it plays out on social media and in the news.
Basically, what happened was that Commissioner Moran said this during a city council meeting, and then what I saw on Facebook was the Saratoga Springs Police Department on their page said, at the behest of Commissioner Montagnino, we're releasing this body camera footage of Els Figueroa being detained, arrested, whatever the terminology was, and it was the full video of the entire incident of him being stopped, told what was going to happen, being patted down, having handcuffs put on with his hands in front. And I have to say, it was one of the most gentle interactions between a police officer and someone being detained you could possibly imagine. I mean, it was polite, it was calm, it was quiet, it was, he was every step of the way. They said what they were doing. I mean, literally, it was like, if you were going to rate it on Amazon, it
was our police
a 5-star
transaction.
Professionalism. It was professional, by the book. There was nothing aggressive about it at all. And on El's side, it's not like he was resisting or being an asshole or pushing back at all. I mean, it was literally.
Yep, he was there with his attorney.
Yeah, his attorney was there. It was a nothing burger. There was nothing dramatic about it at all.
Now, what that led into is the next Friday, last Friday at 4 p.m., there was a special meeting about a low barrier homeless shelter. Commissioner Moran, in his defense, he did come out and he apologized for using the terminology because, again, painting this picture of our police force as these thugs who, bully and slam people against walls, it just doesn't help anybody. There's no purpose. And Commissioner Miranda, his was on a Friday at 4 p.m. where not a lot of people were watching, but he did apologize for it. But let's talk about the low barrier shelter in this meeting and how this was kind of pushed through.
Also, really quickly, it's not the first time this mischaracterization of the police has happened. Like, this is on the heels of I think Ron Kim saying that the police were waiting in riot gear.
In full riot gear, yes.
So this is kind of like a pattern that during a city council meeting, the police are depicted doing something like very extreme when in fact there's no truth in it at all.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that they're I mean, not happy, but I think it's a good thing that this is being cleared up through body camera footage. So this continued, stream of misinformation is cleared up. But I also think it's just, excuse my language, but it's pathetic that we're having to do this with our city leaders, you know what I mean? And our police department, that we're having to do this kind of like little merry-go-round of sorting out this misinformation. It's just like, Jesus. I mean,
we talked about this before in the show, how much of our city's resources this is taking up. It is a shame, but going to this low barrier shelter.
Low barrier shelter. So first of all,
what do you think about the Friday 4 p.m. meeting about?
It's bullshit. It's bullshit. I'm sorry. What was the urgency of you? It was so necessary to have the city council meeting that they had to schedule it at a Friday at 4:00. I didn't know what was happening. I'm like a loser. I'm obsessed with these city council meetings. I like to watch all of them. I had no idea it was happening. I didn't see the notice go out, and so I wasn't able to watch it. It's a significant issue of a low barrier shelter, 24/7, 365 being approved. It's something that I've wanted in our city for years and years and years. And so it's really something that I would have wanted to watch. And I think it's something that a lot of our community would have wanted to weigh in on. And so to schedule it at a Friday at 4:00 is just total bullshit. They should have just waited until Monday or Tuesday and made it at a time where the public could actually watch it and had time to put out proper announcements and inform people so they could weigh in and watch. And I mean, that's good government, to me, that's good government. But of course they didn't do that. So So long story short, it was approved. This low barrier shelter was approved. It's I'm kind of unclear on the timeline here. I guess they've been working on it for a while. It's already up and running on Adelphi Street. There's already, I guess, people staying there. I think there's 10 beds so far. There's like TVs, sofas, beds. Sonny and Julie Bonaccio were a huge part of this, as was Meg Kelly. I only know this because Mayor Kim mentioned it like 10,000 times in the League of Women Voters Forum and praised them thoroughly, as they deserve. Rise is the organization that's running it, but it is up and running. Now, Mayor Kim did also assert that there's no more homeless people at the Woodlawn Garage because this is open. I find that to be a bit of a dubious claim. I'm not sure that's totally accurate. My guess is we're still going to have a few issues over at Woodlawn, but if I'm wrong, that's awesome.
There wasn't a lot of public comment, but there was.
Of course, there wasn't. Who knew it was happening?
Yeah, but the people who did know what happened, you had neighbors in this area come out and say this is a serious issue that we're taking on, and that it needed more planning, more input. I'm just scared having something like this so close to our core or downtown area. I don't know. There was a really interesting special on CNN, and they pulled it, but it was called "What Happened to San Francisco."
Yeah.
And the problem is that it's once you open up this low barrier shelter, this is not. And people say, well, it's, most of these people are from Saratoga. I don't believe that for 1 second. I don't think any of these advocacy groups are going to release numbers on this because they know it becomes if you build it, they will come. I don't think this is going to solve our homelessness issue.
Right.
This is going to relieve some of the homelessness issue from our surrounding areas. Again, I hope I'm wrong, but right now our core, and there were the stories, and I've seen this, this narrative that, and this certainly is true, that the homelessness is somebody who's just fallen on tough times, needed a little help to get back. That's certainly the case. And everybody needs help. Not everybody needs help, but these are human beings, and I'm very sympathetic to that. And I understand that people need sometimes just a little boost in life to get over a really difficult patch. But there's so many more complexities into this. There's substance abuse, there's mental health disorders, and none of that, I think, is being comprehensively addressed. It's more just slapping a Band-Aid to say we did this, and it's just going to exacerbate the problem, and it's not going to solve what the homelessness issue in Saratoga, because there's no restraints on who anybody can come.
First of all, politicians can't solve homelessness. Like, let's just put that right out there. You know what I mean?
Especially not local ones, right?
Especially not local ones. But first of all, I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you do. One of the things that when I was on the collaborative to end homelessness and on many of these task force, one of the things that we thought was so critical if we were to open a 24/7, 365 shelter was to have services at that shelter, social services, like permanently at that shelter, such that when we had this kind of captive population, we could hopefully connect some of those folks with social services and try to help them transition into some other kind of housing so that it wasn't just an emergency drop-in shelter. Do you know if those types of services are going to be provided at this Adelphi Street location?
I don't. I will say this. I have incredible respect for Rise, who's running it. Yeah. And I think sometimes I think they are misguided. I think they're great at planning. I saw how they operate in homelessness court. They know our homeless population. They know their needs. So what's the old, there's a substance abuse building there. The old, it was an old car dealership.
Over on South Broadway, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, it's County Mental Health.
Yeah. So, I mean, so theoretically, there's services there. Again, this might be the conservative in me, but I think the idea that a homelessness shelter needs to be downtown because the homelessness need to connect with the city is a little misguided. I think a lot of them demonstrate antisocial behaviors. I think they do need the ability to go shopping, to be be on a bus line, to be able to, if they get a job, to be able to transport to and from the job. I just am somebody who doesn't think it needs to be in our core.
But again, to me, the 24/7, 365 shelter was not some place that people were going to be staying day in and day out. it was more of an emergency shelter for emergency use, like, shorter.
Yeah, but I don't know how you regulate that, right?
No, I don't know either.
Right,
And
right.
This is where Shelters of Saratoga, I feel like, has been so successful, because they provide a transitional service where, they have people who are in Shelters of Saratoga for a 3 to 4 month stay while they transition them into a more permanent housing solution. And to me, that has been such a successful model for our community, and they do such a wonderful job with that. I would love to talk to Rise about this. I have invited them on this podcast. They have declined to come on because we are too, quote, political. I don't know if you know that, Adam, but maybe they'll reconsider in light of this new shelter, and maybe they'll come on and help us understand it a little bit more, because I do think there's challenges. I do think there's concerns. I'm sure they've addressed some of them in a way that would be satisfactory to us, but we don't know what we don't know. My other issue was that the city is funding this. The city basically wrote like a blank check for this. And that is insane to me, because this is already something that we pay for as taxpayers through the county and through the state, quite frankly. And so I understand funding it temporarily, but we need to get the county involved. And I know that's one of the things that Commissioner Madigan is running on as she's running for county supervisor. We have to get the county involved in terms of funding this, because, as you said, there's absolutely no reality in which this is just for people in Saratoga Springs. This is going to be housing people from all over the county, if not region. And so it should not be the burden of Saratoga Springs taxpayers, but it's also already something we're paying for through social services at the county level. So why would we duplicate a tax that we're already paying, or make it triplicate something we're already paying through the state and county? It just doesn't make any sense. And it could become enormously expensive.
Yeah, it really could. And it could become a big liability. I mean, this is a very complex issue that our citywide, it feels good to say, hey, we opened this, homelessness solved in Saratoga. It's not. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's just going to exacerbate the problem, lead to a big financial burden for our city, and it's not going to solve the problem and when you, at the public comment, when you hear the people who live around the Code Blue shelter now, it's a lot of what they go through. It's one story was somebody just stripped naked, started rolling in the snow, then ran towards a.
It's the same location,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So there was another story about a guy just defecating on a building, and
I will say I lived 4 houses away from Code Blue for 3 winters, and I had a wonderful experience. I did not have any negative experiences. So I think
well,
people, yeah. So again,
yeah, your experience is that's great that you had that experience. I could say I have family who live close to the New England Presbyterian Church when they tried to, and there were some really horrendous experiences by its neighbors.
Totally.
So it comes back to this complex issue that our city council passes something, I don't want to say the dead of night, because in the middle of the day that they can run on, they can homelessness solved in Saratoga, but.
Without question, this was something that Ron Kim wanted to have happen before the primary on June 27th. It couldn't be more obvious to me. It was something he wanted to check off so he could campaign on it. And that's bullshit. And I have been a proponent for a 24/7, 365 drop-in shelter for a long time. I saw it as kind of the missing piece of a puzzle in Saratoga Springs in terms of how we deal with the homeless, because we have police officers who are being called to deal with homeless people on the street constantly, and they have nowhere to put them, nowhere to take them. They can take them to the hospital, they could take them to county mental health, but oftentimes they just needed a place to take them that was warm, where they could stay the night. And this was not when, and Code Blue wasn't open all year round. So this has always been something I've advocated for, but you need to do it responsibly, and you need to do it through the proper procedures, and doing something like this and taking it on is really complicated. And I'm sure, maybe Rise has done that. I don't know. I don't think they've been transparent enough about this. And I think pushing it through on a Friday at 4:00 is total crap. I think there's a lot of suspicious political motivations here. And I'd really like to get some more answers.
All right. Well, we've gone over an hour. There's still so much to talk about.
I know.
Next week, I just want to put this in real quick. We're going to have a really interesting, unless something else crazy happens, talk about. There was a video of high school kids viciously attacking a girl in Congress Park. So we're going to get some insight, have some guests on about that incident and what's going on in our schools. And that will be hopefully we'll have Mayor Kim on. Maybe Dan and I can interview him again about some of his thoughts on what is going on and why he, this low barrier shelter and whatnot. But in the meantime, should we go to Cheers and Jeers? Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a lot of school stuff that I think we should touch on. I would love to have that conversation next week. Cheers and Cheers. Damn. Oh, I know what I wanted to cheer. The Flag Day Parade. I love our little Flag Day Parade. And I just wanted to cheer Saratoga Pride because Saratoga Pride asked my family if we wanted to march with them in this year's Flag Day Parade. And Saratoga Pride is just such a wonderful, inclusive group of people. And my kids and I had so much fun marching with them in the parade this year. And so I just wanted to cheer Saratoga Pride and thank them for giving us that opportunity. It was awesome. It gave me all the feels. And I love kind of these kind of small town kind of celebrations. I love them. I'm going to jeer. Well, I've already jeered Ron Kim enough. So he's my standing jeer for this podcast.
All right. I have a couple. One, in Lake Ave school, my daughter, she's going to be moving up. This is her last year. I know. She represents the second generation of Israels to graduate from that school. It's just the faculty, the staff, the school has been amazing to my family. So for all the teachers of my kids, thank you. It was a really great experience there, and we'll miss going there.
Wait, I can't believe you're not going to be a pickup and drop off anymore, dude.
I know. Well, my nieces will still be there, so maybe I'll pop in every now and then.
All right.
This is not quite a jeer, but a little for people who followed Steve Thurston in the Foothills business news, daily news. Steve is hanging it up. Local journalism is tough. It's hard to make money. Steve was if he wasn't at everything, he was close thereof. He was reporting from the city council meetings. He was working hard. I didn't always see eye to eye with him, but I think he did it. It was a service he did for this community, and it's going to be his reporting is going to be missed because it really covered a lot of local news. Final jeer is and I'll completely 180 here, but for those following what's happening in Ukraine, Ukraine has started their counteroffensive right now. They're slowly taking back land. It's the counteroffensive. They're using modern Western vehicles that are saving lives there. Awesome. There's instance of Bradley's being blown up, but crews surviving. This is a really interesting time in this conflict, and prayers and thoughts are with the fighters of Ukraine who are fighting for all democracies and all freedoms. They're the front line right now against tyrannical dictatorship. So good luck out there, men and women who are fighting and putting your lives on the line for your families, your country, and all the free people of the world. So those are my cheers and jeers.
That was a beautiful sentiment, and I'm going to ruin it by saying I'm still traumatized by that shark video you sent me. Which, by the way, I think it's gone fairly viral because I heard about it on a podcast I was listening to last night.
Oh yeah. There's a whole sect of people who there's so much video coming out from this conflict that you become a little desensitized to, but you understand. There's when I was over in Ukraine, you would hear the saying often and say it's war. This is what happens in war. But there's some really heroic videos of Ukrainians, and everybody now has GoPros and drones on the front line, so it's really interesting. But there was a Russian who was swimming in Egypt, and he had a lot of bad things to say about the Ukrainians who were killed. And he was attacked and killed by a shark, and it was pretty.
And it was the most fucked up shark attack I've ever seen. It was disturbing if you're really into shark attacks and you want to see the most disturbing shark attack ever, Google Russian being eaten by shark. It was like I said, I'm still traumatized.
It's gonna be a while before I go deep into the sea. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. But, I was like, ooh. Anyway,
but
on that note,
it's war. Anyway, all right. Well, hey,
ocean and on land.
Great show. We ran a little long today, but we covered a lot of great things.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam.
All right. See you next week.
All right. Over and out.